Hello and welcome to Freethought Forum, a program by the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee. I'm Faithless Forrest.
And I'm John Clark, and we want you to know that if you don't believe in God, you are not alone. Right here in East Tennessee, you can find free-thinking atheists and agnostics. This is a show for them and for people committed to a life rooted in science and free of supernatural beliefs.
On today's show, we will be talking about the recent Easter weekend invasion or event in Utah.
But first, we want to tell you a little about the sponsors of our show. The Atheist Society of Knoxville, or ASK, frequently has a fun meetup at Barley's in the Old City, starting around 5:30 p.m. Look for a silver-jacketed copy of The God Delusion standing upright on the table. Yeah, right above me. Everyone's welcome to enjoy the conversation, but we don't want any, we'd rather not have anyone preaching, proselytizing, and disrupting the event.
All right, the Rationalists of East Tennessee have several regular monthly meetings. The first and third Sunday mornings of the month are usually lectures with lively roundtable discussions. The second Sunday we hold the Skeptics Book Club, and on the fourth Sunday we are now mixing it up. Sometimes it's a get-together we call the Reflections Meeting and features a potluck lunch at someone's home, and sometimes we meet to play board games or similar activities.
Later in the show, we'll give you sites to visit for additional information and details, including times and locations. But first, we'll head to our news segment.
In the news, well, it's April 29 and May is fast approaching. The first Thursday in May, which is this Thursday, is the National Day of Reason.
For viewers who have not heard the National Day of Reason, if you visit their website, nationaldayofreason.org, you will find this statement. A consortium of leaders within the community of reason endorsed the idea of a National Day of Reason. This observance is held in parallel with the National Day of Prayer on the first Thursday in May each year. The goal of this effort is to celebrate reason, a concept all Americans can support, and to raise public awareness about the persistent threat to religious liberty posed by government intrusion into the private sphere of worship. The National Day of Reason website is co-sponsored by the American Humanist Association and the Washington Area Secular Humanist. The Day of Reason also exists to inspire the secular community to be visible and active on this day to set the right example for how to effect positive change. Local organizations might use Day of Reason to label their events, or they might choose such labels as Day of Action, Day of Service, or Rational Day of Care. The important message is to provide a positive, useful, constitutional alternative to the exclusionary National Day of Prayer.
And how are members of the secular community active on this Day of Reason? Some have blood drives. Here in Knoxville, you can donate to Medic at 1601 Ayler Avenue in Knoxville. You can call their office to find a bloodmobile in your community. Their phone number is 865-524-3074. We will try to mention this again later in the show if you don't have a pencil just now.
Of course, any day you are eligible to donate blood is a good day to do so. Some groups use the National Day of Reason to build fellowship in the secular community. For instance, in Pensacola, Florida, there is a Thomas Paine Clinic. In Minnesota, they meet in the Capitol Building Rotunda for a peaceful presentation on the separation of church and state. And just to the west of us, in Hickory, North Carolina, is a regional gathering I think some of our members are going to. Starting Thursday with events till Sunday, it is for...
4 fun-filled days.
4 fun-filled days. That is... Wow, that's an interesting way to put that, Forrest. All right, so one of the activities I wish I could get to is a lecture featuring Tracy Harris, a member of the atheist community of Austin and a regular co-host of the Atheist Experience who inspired this show.
Yay, Tracy. All right, and for our last show in April, we have a few Freethought birth anniversaries for you. Sam Harris was born on April 9th in 1967. An American author, philosopher, and neuroscientist, as well as co-founder and CEO of Project Reason. He's the author of End of Faith and Letter to a Christian Nation, amongst many books. Christopher Hitchens was born April 13, 1949. He's the author of God is Not Great and a forceful critic of religion for the harm it does to society. Hitchens was always proud of the fact that he shared the birthday with Thomas Jefferson, who wrote of the Constitution, thus building a wall of separation between church and state. And finally, a birth anniversary. I think we got a slide for this one, Sam. It was on April 24 in 1990 that the Hubble Space Telescope was launched and began to open humanity's eyes to the universe as never before.
That's a fascinating instrument, the Hubble Space Telescope. And we're still finding new ways to use it, I understand.
Yep.
So,
I think it must have probably about maybe 3 more years on its gyroscopes. I think the last refurbish was going to give it about that much more life, but time passes and I might be a little muddled on that.
Right. The what's taking its place? Is it Webb? No.
There's a Webb Space Telescope. It uses segmented mirrors, so the system is all folded up. The Hubble was the largest telescope they could build that would fit inside the shuttle bay.
Right.
Now, the Webb Space Telescope is going to use
origami. It's based off of origami.
All right, yeah.
Yeah, no, I read that it's based off of origami. It's fascinating.
It's hexagonal mirrors that have got hinges and pivots to it, so they can fold it up into a tube that then an unmanned rocket will carry into space. But it will be substantially larger than the Hubble, so it will dazzle us further, and it'll more importantly, it will show us things way far out that the Hubble, strains to see, and we'll see it, more clearly, more powerfully. So,
I have
in our show notes there's the talk about over in Hickory, North Carolina. Was that something you were planning on going to, do you think? Or?
Yes, I think I will be there. I'm going to be definitely trying. Bart Ehrman is going to be there. He's yeah, he's a big speaker.
For our viewers, sake, why don't you tell me who Bart Ehrman is, and I'll correct you when I know other things.
So Bart Ehrman is, and by the way, so this is the Freedom from Religion Foundation, Raleigh, North Carolina at...
Oh, there's actually 2 events.
Oh, there's 2. Yeah, that's right. I see.
There's one way out in the Raleigh-Durham area.
Okay.
That's where Bart Ehrman is.
Yeah, that's where he is. Okay, yeah. Don't want to get those confused. So, if you're going to head to one, if we're advertising and you're close by, double check me. Yeah.
Yeah. Hickory.
But I wanted to see him. Yeah.
Is probably about as far beyond Asheville as Asheville is from us. Asheville is, right around 2 hours. I think Hickory is another 2 hours beyond that, maybe not quite that far.
Right, yeah.
So it'd be the kind of thing you could get up real early Saturday morning, go to events, and sleep in your own bed late Saturday night if you didn't want to spend a motel room. Sorry, I interrupted.
No, that's all right. There's a couple other news bits I wanted to talk about. If you're in the area, Camp Quest, Smoky Mountains, actually they're full. Registration is full, but just so you know.
For 2014, it's full already?
Yep, it's got it right here. Yeah, I just seen that now because I'm trying to volunteer for it and as a counselor. But yeah, already. And do you know a lot about this? Where it takes place? Because it's Townsend, Tennessee, right?
It's in the Great Smoky Mountains in the Tremont. Do they call it Nature Center? It's cabins with bunk beds.
Right. It's like dormitory or something.
It's meant to be a summer camp environment.
Right.
It's not quite. It's just as you start down the road going towards the Cades Cove Loop Trail.
And it's got here listed activities, hiking, of course, outdoorsy type things, salamandering, the Socrates Cafe, which I'm not as familiar with, but this is a camp that is for promoting rational thinking within children, aged 8 to 17. So perhaps next year give it a look, but it's going on, and just let you know this stuff's in the area, and that's a pretty successful camp from what I understand. We have to mention that the LA Clippers owner, what is it, Sterling? Yeah. Donald Sterling has been banned for life by NBA Commissioner Adam Silver over racist comments. And this is good news, and it's also good news that bigoted individuals everywhere should be, particularly right now, at least with this, we're talking about racist individuals, should get a very clear message in this country, and that's this is that duality of the First Amendment. You're free to hold these ideas, but they come at cost, especially if you're a bigoted individual in a country which is for everyone, right?
Yes, the land of the free is built by all of us pitching in, and we can't say that some citizens are somehow less than others.
Right, and you just chasing back our history in a multiple variety of directions. We even find that we had our own bigoted views towards Native Americans. We've had to come to terms with. We've had our own bigoted views towards African Americans. Well, Africans at the time, but African American slaves, and our ancestors and ourselves have had to come to terms with this in studying history. And if you want to continue to hold these types of ideas despite modern understanding of humanity, then you're free to do so. But man, it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt $2.5 million worth as far as the highest penalty they could hit him with financially. And I think this sends a crystal clear message, and I hope it rattles everyone all the way up the income bracket, right? And I would love to see a day where I don't think it makes as much sense to punish all betrayers of equality. I mean, on just various grounds out there, because we haven't put the legislation out there that needs to be there to protect all people. It's kind of, it follows from the legislation we have, but we need to get out there and protect all sexes, not just transgender, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender community.
The government, in a sense, has no business asking
right.
you about your gender,
right?
Or personal preferences.
But it would be great to have one day where those types of ideas, we have a community of people, a population that understands it to the degree that we can punish someone like this as an outlier in that sense. It's a social punishment, really. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure he can handle that $2.5 million tab, which is sad at the same time, but it's a good message, and I just have to mention it because it's something I think a lot of our viewers...
Well, we are becoming a better America.
It's a victory, yeah.
In the early days of the 21st century, no one would have thought that marriage equality would have made the strides it has made since. I think that it's a good sign for all minorities, the success that the marriage equality has brought to minority protection.
Right. And what we can bring in the future as well. We want to head on to our program.
The program.
We want to remind people.
What was happening in Salt Lake City?
Well, I just wanted to remind really quickly, this is a call-in show, and if anything of the news had grabbed anyone's eye, you got the...
All right. We encourage callers to call in. And so, John, you went to Salt Lake City.
I did.
You went to the American Atheist Convention. Can you tell us, and for not all of our viewers are going to know what the American Atheists are.
Right. So I mentioned briefly last time, the American Atheists founded by Madalyn Murray O'Hara. She is the victor in the case Murray versus Curlett. It was a landmark decision in American jurisprudence on behalf of the First Amendment rights and Jefferson's Law. It began. She stated it as this, and this isn't gender neutral. This was at a different time, and I was going to pin it gender neutral to say it, but I'm just going to repeat it the way that she did it for simplicity. Your petitioners are atheists, and they define their lifestyle as follows. An atheist loves himself and his fellow man instead of a God. An atheist accepts that heaven is something for which we should work now, here on earth, for all men together to enjoy. An atheist accepts that he can get no help through prayer, but that he must find himself in the inner conviction and strength to meet life, to grapple with it, to subdue it, and to enjoy it. An atheist accepts that only in a knowledge of himself and a knowledge of his fellow man can he find the understanding that will help lead to a life of fulfillment.
All right, well, that's a great statement. I always feel surprised to hear such compelling words from what amounts to a legal brief.
Right.
I guess that the judge, it may have been, when it was at the lower level, asked for a statement of why they were bringing suit, and Madeline penned that paragraph
Right.
in request of the court. But what about Salt Lake City?
Okay, right. The convention was in Salt Lake City. David Silverman wanted, and the American Atheists, their council decided to plant this in the middle of an area that's known to be highly religious, and in this case, the capital of Mormons, right? Pretty much.
Mormondom, as Dan Barker likes to say.
Yeah, and Salt Lake City itself is like, when I visited it, walking around, it's just not that religious. So it was interesting. I went to one of the local meetup. There's 3 of them. I went to one on Thursday night, and they've got a meetup just like us. And I don't know, it just didn't come off as super religious. And that particular cafe or whatever it was, coffee house, it had lots of little your typical coffee house, liberal ideas presented, and little quotes everywhere, accepting people of all backgrounds and whatnot. So, but it's still right there. You've got the Mormon temple. You've got this powerful group.
So
there.
I visited Salt Lake City probably in '87 or '88, and was struck by a few things. One is that it was a planned city with a grid structure. So you give your address by an east-west, north-south coordinate, which is really convenient. About the only place it breaks down is where the roads go up into the foothills of the mountain range whose name escapes me right now.
Yeah.
Wasatch Mountains, maybe?
Not sure.
But the other thing that I was told about is an unusual set of laws regarding alcohol.
Right. I don't remember any that got in the way except for the no selling on Sunday.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, I wonder if it may have changed since then. I didn't actually do it. I'm not a big drinker, and what I was told is that they didn't. There was like no liquor stores or bars, but what you could do is join a private club.
Okay.
So there existed bars where for $5 you could have an annual membership, and it may have come with a free drink.
Perhaps there was something like that. It was like that in North Carolina when I lived there. Like all the dance clubs, all the clubs you had to be a member at, and they had little wiggle ways to get around it. But no, actually, when I was there, no, there was a liquor store. I think it was called State Liquor Store. Like 2 blocks from where I stayed. I mean, it was open standard hours.
And it was probably run by the state of Utah.
Oh, right. Yeah, it was. I don't know how that worked out. Yeah, but there was an odd law where
viewers who can tell us more are encouraged to call in.
Yeah, if maybe you had a past there, you understand some of the older laws and whatnot. But the hotel lobby itself, you couldn't bring alcohol downstairs, but there was a bar downstairs. But you had to be at the bar. And there were certain areas, so that was kind of interesting. But no, But
I think that's an echo of a strong religious grip.
Yeah, I think it probably was. Yeah.
On the secular sphere of law.
Yeah, you don't want people removing inhibitions in your church.
It might lead to dancing.
It might lead to dancing, amongst other things, and it most certainly did. Dancing, and actually we had this. Man, I can't. Well, we'll get to that. Let's go over some of the speakers, because what I want to do is outline for those of you who may have been interested in what's going on, and the media hasn't quite gotten through to the channels that it normally would, like the American Atheist homepage and YouTube. There's some stuff out there, but in the future to come out there. Plus, I want to give an opportunity for anyone out there that's sponsored officially, through a DVD or set or something, to make money off that. But I'll highlight the talkers today and the point of the rally. And as
I think we got a slide with some photos here to come up next.
yeah, but right before I get to that, I want to mention that just like Madeline stated in her statement I read before, the American atheists stay at the tip of the spear. They practice what is David Silverman's called firebrand atheism, which he contrasts with militant atheism. Militant atheism being something
and the difference is, pray tell?
Well, you're right. The militant atheism being something that he considers not real, basically imaginary. And in this sense, he means, where your little Richard Dawkins puppets that are going out bombing places. They're not. It doesn't happen. So this militant atheism doesn't exist. However, an aggressive atheism, and some of the religious viewers, and perhaps even some of our secular rationalist viewers have been in these shoes before, where you've at least seen someone who is the angry atheist, or a passionate atheist, or someone who's just not ashamed of their atheism. And this is, that's what firebrand is. It's in your face to where you can't ignore it. Now, we all understand that anytime somebody's doing that, it can be annoying. Everyone's familiar with the, just your standard homosexual person, but then you've got your flaming gay person, which is often parodied in a sitcom or something. And in some degrees, a personality can get annoying, or a certain trait of someone can get annoying, but it's meant to be in your face. And in movements of all types, you have this pressure to get out and shout a little more than everyone else. And so that's what the American atheist is latching onto, is that type of message. Now, what David Silverman had mentioned is that we need to be a little more supportive. For those of you who are at the Reason Rally, right? You went to the Reason Rally.
I was there.
I went to the Reason Rally. A lot of people went to the Reason Rally, and a lot of people who went to the rally don't typically go to something like the American Atheist Convention. And so the Reason Rally was just to be counted, in a sense, was to stand up, to know what it's like to be in a group.
It was important to be on the National Mall and say, we have every right to be here as well.
Exactly. But now that that's over, what do we do? And we've got our local group that we advertise. We do our show. There are lots of local groups out there that just all they do is meet, and that's fine. Everyone's doing what they do, but is there something we could do a little better? Have you been paying your yearly dues? Do you buy shirts from, if you buy this shirt, was that bought at an event? Was it bought from an atheist entrepreneur? Are we funding our own people in that sense, in that regard? Yes, we all stood and were counted in 2012. What are we doing in 2014, and how can we share this? And some of the speakers went on a little more detail, and I'll get to that in a moment, about this. But that's the message. Are we building on what we have? Because we've invested in getting the name out. And is it going to be worth it to keep investing and get the name out? No, we need to start doing stuff. And so that's the next step. And if we could bring the speakers right back up that we had. All right, so starting from my right, your left, Chris Clue.
I got the ball.
Chris Clue, right? So he's a former professional football player, actually. And that's just because he wasn't signed on this year. But he, and I don't know what his intentions are in the future, but he was a punter for the Minnesota Vikings and the Oakland Raiders. And he got his name out there by speaking on free speech issues, equality. We all know football is a dangerous sport, right? And in I think Chris Clue's words, it was, you got massive athletic individuals who are colliding with each other at a high rate of speed. And people get injured. So he was one of the people who would, hey, are we getting hurt? And then when one of the, perhaps an owner or coach said otherwise, he's like, no. This is serious. We need to think about this. It's our lives, There was a South Park episode that parodied the football players, and it had them like coming out on the field with their pants falling off, and like basically, having a helmet on their head, but the helmet's no longer to prevent
injury rather.
Well, it's to prevent injury, but now they got a helmet on their head to prevent just falling over and hurting themselves because they're brain damaged. You know, this is the same situation we face in boxing, where you find out actually wearing the gloves causes more damage over time because instead of getting knocked out, you can still stand up after getting hit like that. Oh. And yeah, you find out this is something that you just have.
I was not aware of that.
You didn't know. Yeah, so if there's any nurses at home, I'll throw out the medical lingo. It's coup, counter coup, and we won't talk about what those are, but it's forms of brain damage when your head collides. Basically, your brains, this is wonderful medical stuff we don't have time for. But anyhow, Chris spoke out about these issues, made a name for himself, and he was the keynote speaker this year. And what he had to say was that he shared his experience of coming out to his players about being not just an atheist, but at first, like he did, I think it was 8 years in the pro league, and then of course he did other sports before then, and they share something in common. You've got a brotherhood in this sense, and I got to speak with him later, and I was talking about being in the military. You have this brotherhood, right? And there are certain things you don't want to do to disrupt the brotherhood, and sometimes that's standing out. Unfortunately, even in a movement like our own, it could be the same type of thing, right? And you're reluctant to do it. You don't want to rock the boat in a sense because you don't want to disrupt this brotherhood.
It took a long time for the first professional athletes to say that they were gay.
Right.
And then quite a few followed immediately.
Exactly. But you could also see, and this is through his own words, and regarding his experience in the team, and also just right along with my own. You know, if let's say you were given an unlawful order in the military, this is my experience, and you report it, that could be seen as rocking the boat. That can disrupt discipline. It doesn't sound right, does it? But do you really want to report it? And so a lot of times these things kind of get pushed under the rug. And so what his experience was is over those 8 years, this wasn't seen as rocking the boat anymore. No one cared. Or if they do care, they got national attention for it, like it's going on now, and it's driving the point home that we accept all people. So it's a slow process, and at first you're reluctant because you don't want to rock that boat, and because in these systems, it's a sports team, you know each other very well, and just as my experience in the infantry, you have to depend on these people, and you wouldn't think that something like that would rock that discipline boat. But if he's sitting here talking out about these issues and the coach is telling him not to, right?
Yeah.
That's rocking the boat, because now you're seen as someone who speaks out against the coach. It's not a matter of it being right or wrong anymore, and it rocks that boat in that sense. And so
authority structures don't take kindly to the subordinates speaking up,
even when they're correct. Yeah, and you know, of course you would sit there and go, well, my coach was cool with everything. Well, that's great that you had a coach like that. And we don't quite live in that age yet. We're pushing and we're getting there, but we're not there yet. And so now he's out, and it's important, right? But it's up, these systems, just so you know, I mean, if I had to take something back from his talk, it's that, guess what? These systems exist, and you might disrupt them in a way you don't want to, and there's going to be a cost, you know, to these kind of things. Now, fortunately for him, he's in a situation now where the cost was not a big deal. But that's a take-home that a lot of us may not be aware of, you know. And if you ever wondered why things are just, people are reluctant, there's a good reason right there.
All right.
I guess we're at a good time to do a short mid-program break.
You want to do the mid-program break?
Yeah, right before we do, I want to remind people that it's a call-in show. The number's right there, and the phones are live. And I think I'd just rather have Sam go ahead and roll the video.
Sure. Sam, if you're ready, make them go.
In or around the Knoxville area and are questioning your religious beliefs or simply believe in one less God than everyone else? Well, you're not alone. The Atheist Society of Knoxville is a fun and friendly group of people just like you that meets twice a week at a bar or restaurant. We meet every Tuesday night following the show at Barley's Tap Room and Pizzeria for happy hour. You'll find our group either inside or on the patio. Look for Richard Dawkins' silver-jacketed book, The God Delusion, standing upright on the table. On Fridays, we meet at Agave Azul or the Beard and Beer Market. But if you plan to preach, proselytize, provoke, or punch, please don't. We all question what we believe at one point in our lives. If this is the time for you, come join us for food, drink, conversation, and fun. Do you find stories of talking snakes laughable? Do you prefer the scientific method over supernatural beliefs? Are you concerned about religious leaders and organizations imposing their values and rules on your body, your family, and the rest of our society? Well, take comfort in the fact that you're not alone. The Rationalists of East Tennessee meets weekly for fellowship and provides a forum for people who support skeptical thinking and rational discussion of these and other issues. To find out more information or to find out about our next meeting, visit us on the web at www.rationalist.org.
All right, looks like we're back. So the Rationalists of East Tennessee get together about once a month for book club. You need not have read the book to attend, but of course it helps. May's book is Zealot, The Life and Times of Jesus of Nazareth. Visit our website, rationalist.org, to see other books in upcoming months. And just remember that if you don't believe in God, you're not alone. Okay, where did we leave off the convention?
We were talking about yes, there we go, our speakers.
We made it through one thumbnail.
Yeah, one thumbnail. So the first on your left was Chris Clue. And now we'll move on to Denise Stapley, who is a Survivor finalist. I don't recall the season, but I missed half of her talk. Her second, the last portion, she was explaining that, you know, you're in this area, and it reminded me a lot of basic training, but she's away from her family for 7 weeks. You're with people that have different views from you, and they express them in different ways at different times, you know, when they're hungry, thirsty, and there was some praying going on. But I missed a great deal of her talk, and it sounded to me like just being in that environment and learning that you have to do things for yourself and at the same time other people, because it's a TV show. It's a TV show that I don't care for myself, but it's a TV show in which when you're out there, you're lying and stealing, you're cheating the system to win. And she had mentioned, along with it, there was a second survivor who will come on later in the, I think we've got an image of him. If we don't, I'll grab it. But this is conflicting for someone who
wants to be uniformly ethical.
Well, right, but who's following perhaps a religious code to a T, because you may need to violate it to win. It's just, I don't know, it just seems silly to me myself. But her talk was interesting in the regard of just watching other people go through these issues of having to deal with that, not being able to separate the fact that it's a game. And then on top of that, you're going to get portrayed a certain way on television anyhow. So it was interesting, but I missed half of it, and I don't have much more to say about it. Mark White is the next individual here with the bass. He is the bassist of the Spin Doctors, who some people may know of. Trying to think of some of the songs.
I don't recognize. I'm still stuck in the 70s.
Yeah. There's a song, I think it's Just Go Ahead Now or something. I don't know. His story was just that he'd been brought up very religious, had been in a religious home, religious family and friends in, I want to say, New York. And at some point, you know, during his career, he managed to get out into Texas, get a nice house, you know, a couple cars. And then all of a sudden, some minister, he called home just to say hello. And the minister said, God's telling me to get you right back to New York, man. And you got to understand, he's the true believer. And this bothers him because he's sitting there thinking to himself, God really told my minister to tell me this, and now I have to get home. And, you know, his wife's like, And it ended up, the whole thing disrupted his marriage, and he did move back, and then he was like, forget this, this is a terrible idea. And then he moved back to Texas, and just listening to his story there, that's when he's like, this is nonsense is what this is. I was fine in Texas, and the idea that someone told my minister back home that I need to move back to New York, and that this someone's God, is ridiculous. Why didn't God tell me? You know, and this is a great criticism, by the way, of this personal God. This isn't a proof that God doesn't exist. This isn't any of that. This is just simply an argument against a personal God that talks to you, and I found it extremely compelling and humorous to listen to, but it did disrupt his life a little bit. But finally, he made it back. He's playing bass for the band, and no biggie, right? He's on the path of a rational mind now. The next one is Seth Andrews. He has a blog, The Thinking Atheist, a radio show. He was a Christian, an evangelical Christian radio host for years, and now he is an atheist radio host, and he does some great work. If you haven't, Google right away The Thinking Atheist. He's got excellent shows. He gets big names, and his talk was comparing the spin-offs, the particularly Christian spin-offs of like music. And so you'd have like the Backstreet Boys, right? So you got to have like this this Christian sing-along that parodies, or not parodies, but well, it almost does parody.
Free ride on.
Oh man, and it just see, a lot of these things, if you read into the law, are blatantly illegal. But the companies won't sue because they don't want the bad, oh, you're suing a religious organization. But they're blatantly illegal. You wouldn't be allowed to do this. China wouldn't be allowed to just parody this stuff and start marketing it in this way. And he had I'm trying to think of one of his examples. Some of his examples were hilarious. Most of them were names I'd never heard of, but because he's a former...
Names of persons or song groups?
Oh, musical artists that I'd never heard of, yeah. And of course I heard of the... I don't know, I think he mentioned Whitesnake and some big hair 80s bands. I can't remember. But he would bring on the Christian alternative to it during the 80s, right? Now, I have no clue. I never listened to that crap.
Yeah.
And it is crap because he played some of it and it was terrible. But he would show how he, as a radio host, would have these Christian music going, but he's sitting here behind the scenes going, these people are just ripping off modern music and ideas.
Meaning,
and of course,
even when he was a Christian broadcaster,
yes,
he was observing that?
Yes. And had to come to terms that he was doing this, and it was just wonderful. On top of that, I think at the end he mentioned how, of course, Christians ripped off the Christmas time festivals. Like 90% of these ideas aren't even Christian. We've got a caller, and we're going to go ahead and bring them on the air.
Why don't you greet them?
Hello, caller. This is Freethought Forum. Could we have a nickname for you?
Well, the one that you've just used is just fine.
Caller is fine. All right, caller. Shoot. What do you got?
Well, y'all were talking earlier. I have no idea about this American Atheist convention. It seems like it's a lot of information.
But something snagged your attention.
Oh, you're right, yes.
Yeah.
At the start of the show, you were talking about this, is it a basketball owner making racist remarks? Right.
So what happened, I guess, is...
I'm aware of what happened.
Oh, you are? Okay, yeah, go ahead then.
I was just like, to say I was a little bit taken back by the fact that, he's going to be fined in all of this stuff. And, I started wondering if maybe if some father tells his, daughter, I would prefer that you not marry somebody of a particular ethnic group, that they might get a $2.5 million fine. But I'm assuming that this is part of the bylaws of the basketball commission.
Yeah, you're correct. It's the...
So it's not like a law. So this guy, this Bundy out in Nevada or wherever, who Fox loves so much...
Right.
He's not going to get fined.
You're correct. And real quickly, so yes, the Constitution protects him.
So far is not illegal in
Correct.
the country.
Correct.
Okay. I was wondering about
You were worried. Oh.
Because I thought Obama's comment was probably the most appropriate and most high-minded of anyone's, which is you can't really stop someone who's ignorant from advertising their ignorance. I mean, I see it on TV.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
All the time. As a matter of fact, I was a little bit upset that these bigots might have a gag order, because I want that guy out in that rancher out in Nevada buddying up to what's
Hannity.
Yeah. Yes. Oh my gosh, it was just I like to split a gut. And I would hate that these people would just start shutting up, And here's another one. Sarah Palin.
Yeah.
I mean, my God,
could you remind
this
real quick?
woman comes on and
Yeah.
says, no, waterboarding is just baptizing Muslim terrorists.
Yeah.
She
Now,
said
come
that?
on,
Yeah.
guys. Let's,
Oh, man,
So,
am I isolated?
Hang on, caller, if you don't mind, real quickly. Those of you at home, yes, Sarah Palin said, one more time, caller.
what did she say?
Yeah.
Repeat
Well,
it.
she said that waterboarding was just baptizing Muslim terrorists.
Incredible.
And
Just
to think, she aspired to be one heartbeat away from the presidency.
yeah.
Well,
Man.
she aspired. Yeah, she did, didn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, my
missed that
goodness.
bullet, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't want the bigots to shut up. As a matter of fact, one guy I knew said, you know, I would prefer that someone be bigoted right to my face, because that way I know who he is and where he's coming from. Whereas if you're going to be a closet bigot who owns a basketball team that's probably, at least half African Americans.
Yeah, a high
then
percentage.
then you've got this stealth bigotism, which is just not quite so.
I'm to understand that was the case, that this stuff, I mean, we knew about alleged cases of racism with the individual, but this was recorded and he admitted it was his voice, and so, and also you're correct, this was not illegal. He has the right to be bigoted. However, with the commission, and they've got their own constitution, the NBA, and of course it's probably related to 1964 Civil Rights Act and whatnot, and he violated it, and so the fine is within the organization.
Or it might be a morals clause.
Right.
But you might have a markedly different attitude if the NBA commission, whatever, wants to tell atheists that they had better shut their mouth.
Exactly, and that is a good point. Yeah, we're not at that day yet.
So basically, this man is in an organization that they have their own rules.
Yes.
And he understands that he's under those rules.
And the amazing thing is, I mean, you look at the population of basketball players. I mean, African Americans have contributed substantially to that particular sport, and for him to have these ideas and to just go out just saying whatever he wants.
It's called ironic.
Yeah. Well, yes. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, but listen, all you bigots out there, hold that bigot flag high, because when I watch The Daily Show, I really want to laugh hard.
Yeah.
So, anyway,
Well, caller,
just thought I'd mention that.
thank you so much for sharing that with us. I always try to ask, are you local?
Oh, hell yeah, you know I am.
Yeah.
Have you watched before?
We know, caller.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and more importantly, how did you find us?
Okay, how did I find you? It was 2 o'clock in the morning. I'd finished off my second bottle of Jack Daniels, and I was feeling depressed, and I wanted to find out if there was, and I went searching on the internet, and I found the Atheists.
There we are.
All right.
Okay.
Well, thank
and it
you
was
so
dark
much.
and stormy night, too.
Dark and stormy.
But
night.
it's a bright and sunny day now. So.
Right, sunny to know.
Oh, okay,
Caller,
bye-bye.
thank you so much for brightening up our show.
No.
Oh, I cut him off. Didn't mean to do that.
All right.
Well, yeah, exactly. So, yes, raise that bigot flag high so that we know you're there. It's not illegal. It's just incredibly stupid. So, our next guest here, well, you had something?
Well, there's a kind of point there, and that is that I'm old enough to remember a world where bigotry was expressed more frequently, more viciously, out loud. And we've achieved a point where, for the most part, you cannot aspire to public office anymore if you say those things out loud.
Right.
And I think that is a good thing, that the bigots self-censor. Because with the passage of time, they will pass that evil meme on less and less. And we can hopefully see the extinction of that meme. And one day it'll be written about in history books, and they'll say, people used to believe in Zeus, and that people of color were somehow inferior to slaveholders. Yeah.
Well, look at the Mormons. And of course, this was in Salt Lake City, so we did make fun of some Mormon beliefs. One of those beliefs was that the darker your skin color, that you had done something wrong in a, not a past life, well, yeah, kind of like a past life, those individuals had been in some conflict where they had wronged God or you know, and then in 1978 for them to all of a sudden say, oh, God told us it's okay now. It's your skin color, it's fine.
Yeah.
But I think
I was thinking it was 68, but you may be correct.
78.
You've been on
it's in a beautiful song.
You've been on Ground Zero more recently.
It's in a beautiful song. By the way, if you haven't seen it or heard of it, it's a play called The Book of Mormon. It's written by the producers of South Park, creators of South Park, and it's a beautiful song called I Believe, I think.
I don't give it away. I got to go see that sometime.
I can't sing it.
I'm doing my best not to have.
I've tried.
No spoilers.
All right. So up above me now we have another set of speakers. This from your left to right, Marcia Botzer, and then Greta Christina. Now Greta Christina has been on our show once through a phone interview. And I want to jumble them together slightly because they're both LGBT activists first. Marcia in the transgender, Greta Christina mostly with the homosexual activism, and then of course regarding lesbians. However, what do you find out when you're in that group? You find out that you're standing for equal rights. And these are two people who've come from this background. They've written books on the subject, and now they're bringing their knowledge to the front of activism in our movement. And Greta is actually, her next book, I can't think of the name of it right now, but it's going to be geared towards how to come out as an atheist. And she's, of course, going to bring in her knowledge of coming out as homosexual to the table, and hopefully pass on, and I'm sure pass on some great ideas. We have a new caller. Hello, caller. You're on the air. Can we get a nickname for you?
Dave.
Dave. How you doing, Dave?
Doing pretty good. I'm still above ground.
All right.
Great. Do you have a comment or question for us?
I'd like to speak to Mr. Forrest.
All right.
Me?
Mr. Forrest, you might not remember me, but I called in. It's been a little while ago and talked to you and Larry Rhodes. I've called several times and I watch you all the time. But I mentioned to you all about a hallofshame.com.
Oh, yes. Yeah. You know, Larry looked it up. I'll confess I forget details of it, but go ahead and refresh our memory and the viewers' memories.
It's for all these hypocrite rich preachers that gives their little short background on them. Half of them's divorced, so on and so on. I'm speaking of in particular Jimmy Swaggart, John Hagee. As you can tell, I'm an atheist.
All right. Yeah.
I just thought I'd pass it on. Y'all said you were going to look it up and pass it on.
I'm looking at it right now. It's hilarious. They've got companies, they've got politicians, they've got, oh man.
Yeah, I see a whole show here.
Got Jesse Duplantis, got what's that woman's name? It's got 1,000 acres something more, and each one of her kids has got $1 million home on it. Right behind her, Joyce Meyer.
Oh, they've got
over income tax and all that. I'm telling you, it's a pretty good read.
It's also got a domain list for web domains, which apparently are guilty of. I don't know. I can't see quite what their criteria is, but it looks like, yeah, it's hypocritical. Yeah.
Jesse Duplantis. He's one of the worst.
Say that name again.
Jesse Duplantis.
I'm not familiar with him.
Yeah.
Oh, he's on the cable he used to be. I'm sure he's still on.
Okay.
He's built a big Spanish-type mansion. He's from New Orleans.
Right.
It's on that same thing there. It shows how big it is. I mean, it's right maybe 100 yards off the water. And all he'll say is, look how God's blessed me.
I guess apparently that thing about a rich man has less chance of entering heaven than a camel passing through the eye of a needle. He probably doesn't say that one to his congregation.
Yeah, well, I
very
can
often.
tell you a whole bunch of them. And, you know, I guess you fellows have both heard of Jimmy Swaggart.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that had happened not long before I came here to Tennessee, as well as the Jim and Tammy Faye Baker empire falling apart.
Yeah, Jim Baker's on TV. I don't watch it or anything, but they always got something on there to sell. The world's coming to the end. They want to sell you some kind of 55-gallon drum of dehydrated food. I mean, something's on there every day.
Yeah, I don't know if we've mentioned it on the air, but there's someone in, I think, Loudon or Lenore City who sells Jesus oil or something like that.
Woody Martin.
Yeah, okay. Well, tell the viewers about it and refresh my memory.
About Woody Martin?
Yeah.
Well, he's on there with the same thing every day. He just wants you to, he says, send no money. Now, I know people that have did it because they've asked me about it. And he'll send them the little bottle of oil free with a letter, and then here just a few days later, here'll come a thing, if you got the blood oil of Jesus, please fill this out so we'll know you got it and your miracle come true. And he said, we'd appreciate a donation.
Latching on to that prosperity gospel, right?
Yeah.
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 Well, listen,
anyway, I thought I'd call just to give you a reminder about that.
Thanks a lot, Dave.
Let's say thanks much.
.com, and I'll say this, and I'll let somebody else call in. I was in church since I was big enough to walk, 5 years old, with my mother. And I stayed in church, and I took my children to church. I'm retired now, in my 60s. And every time, I won't ever forget it, because I'd say, well, ask something about God, you know, or question God. I'd say, oh, you're not supposed to question God.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be something, maybe to a grown-up might not be too good a question, but to a kid, adolescent, and you get told that, and I finally asked my mother, I said, Mom, if we can't ask him that, and we can't see him, we can't feel him, are you sure he's there? And my mother got a kick out of that, because I was a kid. But anyway, I don't believe in nothing but living right, treating people right. Live the best life you can, fellas, is what I say.
That sounds good to me.
Thanks much, Dave. Dave.
Okay, listen, I appreciate your show, and I'll be watching.
All right, thank you so much. You have a good afternoon.
Hey, will you pass that .com?
Yeah, I'll be circulating it. Yeah.
Okay, I appreciate it, boys.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye then.
All right.
We got 6 minutes. You're going to have to hit the high points because
it looks like I am.
We got more faces.
Well, really quickly, you all are well aware of Matt Dillahunty here on the right, but you may not know Mr. Deity, and Mr. Deity does parodies online. His name, Brian Keith Dalton, former Mormon, and his stuff is great. The comedy's a bit sophisticated, so sometimes I've had to Google as I'm watching it to get the joke, but he does kind of a very blunt character, but they don't dress up. They just impersonate them in person, like you wouldn't have an outfit on, and he plays God, and they play with lots of different.
God has an iPhone sometimes.
Yeah, and his point, of course, his thing was this is how he outreaches. This is how he gets out to people and talks to him.
And actually, it's not God, it's L. Which is kind of a neat little twist there, because they're bringing in the fact that in the Bible God has a name. Yeah. Well, more than one, but one of those is L. Yeah, and then of course there's Lucifer and other characters, and it's satire and it's up there. So sometimes I have to do a little educating. Again, Matt Dillahunty. Matt Dillahunty had an interesting talk where he goes on about in the rational community we're not always rational, and sometimes we need to step back and check each other. And which is always good advice, I think. It's basically peer review within our own community. Sometimes we got to ask each other why we're doing what we're doing. Why are we on this show? Or should we be as aggressive as we are? Should we debate? And of course, that was his second topic, and his answer was yes, always debate, because no matter what, you're getting a message out there. Just make sure that you put it on right. We got another call. Freedom.
Hello, caller. You're on the air. Could we have a name or nickname for you?
Matt.
Hey, Matt, real quick, we're coming down to the last few minutes on our show, but we definitely want to take a comment or question from you and have a short conversation.
I just wanted to see if you would like to have a room full of members like that last caller. I'm sure you'd love to have.
Oh, man, yeah. We've got a table full of them downtown tonight.
I bet you do.
But, yeah.
The people you had on the background there, why do they look like they're asexual? Are they all gay, lesbian?
Well, just so you know, Marcia, Marcia is transgender. And
okay.
So...
The next one.
Now, Greta's girl. Greta's very much a woman. But yeah, short hair and yeah. I don't know. I mean, and you know what? I'm going to pick on Brian here. Brian is next Mormon.
Got a beard and glasses.
Yeah, and Matt. Yeah, you know, come on. But now go back one more, will you, Sam?
But Matt, you know, I've sat here in this chair, perhaps it was that chair, with other hosts on this show. And we've had callers call in and say, "Well, are you gay?" And you know, we weren't talking about anything.
You don't think a true gay person is there a genetic twist in a true gay person? Because I think it's almost like Down syndrome. I mean, people need help. I mean,
you think homosexual?
As a Christian, I believe all people are human. They deserve to be loved and cared for.
Well, but back to your comment, Matt. Back to your comment. Just because we're down to the last 2 minutes here, what was it towards? You said, do you think gay people what?
Is there a genetic twist? My thought process is when you see someone that looks really asexual, like all four of those people, that not just because one's transgender, they all look.
I see kind of where you're going.
Yeah. There's a genetic twist in their eyes and their face.
But Matt, only two of those people would be non-traditional sexual roles. The other two are very traditional. They have spouses of the opposite gender. In other words, Matt, you
to be cared for.
But Matt, you read the wrong signal in there.
Yeah. Well.
Did I?
Yeah.
And one last thing, fellas, and I'll let you go. There's definitely that last caller. He hit a point. There are some bad preachers out there, and that's why most Christians are going to, non-denominational. They're getting away from the Baptist, Presbyterian, Methodist, and it's going away because people want to say, yes, you can come and join the church because we like who you are. But non-denominational is huge, and evangelical is huge in this country now, and that's where it's going. And it should very well be, because there are people that ministers that say that they're great Christians, but they do live in freaking mansions by the river, by the lake, by the ocean. And that's just sad and sick. I pray for you guys. I really do. One last thing: are either of y'all married?
Forrest is.
You're married. How come you don't wear rings? Do y'all wear wedding rings as atheists?
Some do,
I don't
some
wear a ring in particular because at the time I was married, it was fashionable to give diamonds, and diamonds in those days were mined out of South Africa, where there was still what amounted to white oppression and slavery.
Diamonds come from weather.
I won't have anything to do with a diamond.
Yeah. On any of y'all. I've never seen a ring on any of you all as hosting this atheist show, and I just kind of.
Is that a bad thing? Does that bother you?
I'm sorry for you all, because as older guys, you guys are older.
Well, listen, Matt, we're glad you called. Yeah. We're down to the last minute. We got to let you go.
Sign off.
Yeah.
Call in another time, and we can talk more.
Yep.
Thanks much.
All right, getting down to the last few minutes, I guess I'll just have to do another show and finish up the program.
In case you're just tuning in, this is Freethought Forum, a program by the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee. Freethought Forum is funded jointly by them and by individual contributions. Shows are live most Tuesdays from 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern on Community Access Television, Channel 6 or Channel 12, depending upon your cable network. So if you're out of town, tell your out-of-town friends, tune in to ctvknox.org.
All right, so again, just to remind you, the show airs on Tuesdays, 5 to 6 p.m. At ctvknox.org, and that's 2100 Greenwich Mean Time. I know we got people outside of the sphere of
I'm on the wrong
West.
script.
You were on the wrong script. Just like, I'm John Clark, and this is
Faithless Forest.
And we'd like to thank really quickly caller Dave and Matt, Sam, Jonas, and CTV Knox.